Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Brad Barfield with ACN and ESA Staffing.
And we're here to jump into some fascinating local history and news.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you just want the important stuff, the key takeaways, without wading through everything online.
That's what we're aiming for today.
We've got 25 stories that went up on Ashley County Now's Facebook page just in the last day or so. A real mix.
A whole range, really.
Yeah.
From very current things to deep dives into the past.
And we absolutely have to thank ESA Staffing for making this possible. Their support, along with the incredible Ovid T. Switzer Jr. collection, is why we can bring you this kind of history content. ACN is really committed to this, promoting history on the weekends, history every day.
It's a fantastic resource, that Switzer collection. And yeah, the work ACN and ESA are doing to share it is so important for Ashley County.
So think of this as your shortcut, your highlights reel, to get you up to speed on what's been shared about Ashley County's history. And, well, it's present too.
Let's get into it. Where should we start?
Okay, first up, something really practical, especially if you're in Crossett. Story number one, there's a hiring announcement.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah, a new parts store opening up, and they need like 2 to 4 people for shelving assembly.
Short-term work.
Right. Tuesday, May 6th through Thursday, May 8th. It's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., pays $15 an hour.
And experience needed.
Nope. That's the key thing. No experience necessary. They've got a phone number and a website listed right there on the ACN page if you're interested.
Good stuff. Important to get those immediate opportunities out there. It helps folks directly.
Definitely. Okay, now let's jump way back. Story number 2 is called The Cane, the Creek, and the Circuit Riders.
Ah, frontier religion. Mid-1800s Ashley County.
Exactly. Forget fancy church buildings. We're talking like makeshift shelters under the trees, brush arbors made of cane and pine.
It wasn't just about the preaching, though, was it? These were big social events.
Totally. People gathered for the whole day. You got the gospel, sure, but also all the local news, the gossip, and, importantly, supper.
Community hubs, really. Subject to, well, everything. Weather, bugs.
Right, and people walked miles or rode horseback to get there.
Yeah.
Shows you how vital that connection was.
And then you have figures like Reverend Jawbone Shelton.
Oh, yeah. What a name. A Hardshell Baptist preacher. Very colorful.
They called him Jawbone because he always preached about Samson, right? Using the donkey's jawbone.
That's the story.
Yeah.
Not formally educated, but knew how to connect. He had that famous line. Something like, I ain't no grammarian.
Nor no geographarian.
Hmm.
But I do know the Red Sea did not frizz over for the children of Israel to cross on. Classic.
It really captures his style, doesn't it? This comes from those old biographical and historical memoirs of Ashley County, 1890. Part of the Switzer Papers, of course.
It's these characters that bring history alive. Makes you realize it's all about people. And that way of connecting, using stories people understand, well, that still works today, Like sharing these stories on Facebook.
Good point. Okay, let's leap forward again. Mid-20th century, Story 3 gives us a vocabulary list and a character list for a chapter called Stumbling Toward a New Arkansas, 1954-1970.
Right, a really turbulent time. Civil rights, big economic changes happening.
The terms listed really show that. You've got neoplantation.
Which suggests how some old agricultural power structures were maybe adapting but not disappearing.
Uh-huh. Then the Bracero program.
Bringing in temporary workers from Mexico, yeah.
Brown v. Board.
Yeah.
The big school desegregation ruling.
Hugely significant.
And the Little Rock Nine. Their courage. Incredible.
Absolutely pivotal moments, not just for Little Rock, but for the whole state, including Ashley County.
And the character list is just as revealing. You've got Orville Faubus, the governor during the crisis.
And Daisy Bates, the activist who guided the Little Rock Nine. Polar opposites in that struggle.
But then also names like Sam Walton and Don Tyson.
Right. Business leaders whose companies would fundamentally change Arkansas's economy in the decades to come.
It shows how everything was connected. The social upheaval, the economic shifts. This is drawn from Arkansas. A narrative history, again, found via the Switzer collection.
Understanding that whole period is so key to understanding Arkansas now.
Okay, now for something different. Stories 4 and 5 kick off a series on the Creamer Lumber Company.
Oh, this sounds interesting. Rise and Fall, the title says.
Yeah, set in early 20th century Crossett. This guy, John Cameron Creamer, had this huge dream, a hardwood empire.
Hardwood specifically. That's interesting given Crossett's big pine operations.
Right, and he went big, acquired almost 80,000 acres of land.
Wow. That's ambitious, doesn't even cover it.
Exactly. And the vocabulary list for the series hints at the story. Che locomotive.
Specialized logging engines, right? Geared differently for tough terrain.
Uh-huh. Monkey motion, which was apparently slang for the engine mechanics you could see moving. Then, receivership. That's never good. Means the company went bust.
Right, insolvency. Someone else takes over the assets.
And maybe the most telling term, ghost mill.
Oof. Yeah, that suggests it didn't last long, or maybe never even got fully running. A failed dream.
Seems like it. This series, based on research by O.H. Doogie Darling, another Switzer collection, find promises to explore this, quote, forgotten empire. Started April 26th, so people can follow along.
A ghost mill. That really captures the imagination. Makes you want to know what happened, why it failed. Great local history detective work.
Definitely. Okay, story 6 shifts focus again. Back to everyday life from the Bayou Bartholomew series. Smokehouses and ice blocks. How we kept things cold and hot.
Ah, pre-refrigerator ingenuity.
Totally. Thinking about ice houses in towns like McGee, shipping in ice to keep things cool.
And the whole process of butchering hogs and smoking the meat to preserve it through the winter.
Yeah, and gristmills for cornmeal was all about using what you had. Even mentions using sorghum instead of sugar for moonshine during wartime rationing.
Huh. Resourceful, you got to give them that. It really shows the self-reliance of those communities, building their own systems for survival.
It does. This one's from Bayou Bartholomew, a regional stream part 2 Switzer collection again. Now let's talk about O.T. Switzer Sr. himself.
Right, the namesake of the collection.
Stories 7 and 8 focus on him. First, the 1970s through his eyes. By then, he was a well-respected figure in Crosset.
Involved in state-level stuff, too, right? Arkansas parks and
Yeah,
tourism.
exactly. Showed a broader vision for the state. But story 8, OTS versus the machine, looks back earlier.
Ah, his time as chairman of the Ashley County Democratic Central Committee.
Yeah, mid-20th century.
Yeah.
And he apparently took a stand against machine politics. That he was defending the laboring man and the small businessman.
And he had that great quote about rats in the barn.
That's the one. You don't have to burn the barn down to get rid of the rats. Just classic practical wisdom.
It really speaks volumes about his approach. These insights are straight from his letters and records in the collection. Very personal.
It shows that commitment, that willingness to push back. Okay, shifting gears again, a big economic change. Story 9, Chicken Kings and Hill Country Hustle. Tyson and the rise of poultry farming.
Right. This is about the massive shift away from cotton in the Delta.
And the explosion of poultry farming, especially up in northwest Arkansas with folks like Don Tyson.
And it talks about the contract grower system.
Yeah, where farmers raise the chickens, but the big company owns them, provides the feed, sets the terms.
The story compares it to sharecropping, which is a strong comparison, highlights the power dynamics.
It does. Shows the immense economic impact in this move towards vertical integration. One company controlling everything. Source here is Arkansas, a narrative history again via the Switzer Papers.
Understanding that shift is crucial for understanding Arkansas's economy then and now.
Okay, let's circle back to that Kramer Lumber Company. Stories 10 and 22 give us more detail. Dreams in the Bottomland and 79,815 acres and a mountain of debt.
Ah, the debt part again. So the founding.
Yeah. Story 10 details Kramer's big vision, the huge capital stock he started with, grabbing all that bottomland hardwood acreage.
Sounds impressive on paper.
But story 22 brings a reality check. Mountain of debt. It emphasizes the huge mortgage she took on.
And logging hardwood in bottomlands is tough, much harder than pine on higher ground. Wet, difficult terrain.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. The mill never actually produced any lumber. Not a single board before it failed.
Wow. So much ambition, so much investment, and nothing. That's a stark story.
It really is. Comes from Doogie Darling's History of the Company in the Switzer collection. A cautionary tale, maybe.
Definitely raises questions about timing, management, the market, everything.
Okay, let's get current for a second. Story 11.
Yeah.
From Mule Internet to fiber freedom.
Huh. I think a lot of people can relate to this one.
Oh, yeah. It's a personal take on getting fiber optic internet in Ashley County after dealing with slow DSL for years.
That feeling when the speed jumps up, night and day.
Totally. Uses funny comparisons like the old speed being like an Etche sketch. Just a relatable snapshot of modern life improvement.
Good to have those contemporary stories mixed in. Shows progress.
And speaking of current conditions, Story 12 is good news about the Waukita River at Felsenthal.
Oh, yeah. It was high, wasn't it?
It hit minor flood stage, but the update says it's finally falling. Gives the latest levels, the peak it reached, says the trend is downward.
That's a relief for people near the river. Important info, sourced from NOAA river gauges.
Definitely crucial local info. Okay, now for a much bigger picture. Story 13 looks at Charles C. Mann's work. Rewriting Pre-Columbus History.
Mann's 1491. Hugely influential book.
Right. This summarizes how he challenges the old ideas about the Americas before Columbus, arguing for way larger populations, really sophisticated societies like Tenochtitlan or Cahokia.
And sophisticated land management, not just untouched wilderness.
Exactly. Then it dives into the Columbian Exchange
The transfer of everything, plants, animals, diseases.
and the devastating impact, especially of European diseases on indigenous populations.
Yeah.
Wiped out huge numbers.
Catastrophic. And it talks about environmental changes too, right? Reforestation in some areas as populations declined, maybe even impacting climate.
Yeah, and new crops coming over, but also things like malaria, which man connects to the rise of the Atlantic slave trade because it impacted European labor more than African labor in some areas. Complex stuff.
It completely reshaped the world, that exchange. Understanding its scale is vital.
Then Story 14 brings that deep history right back to our area. The Caddo people. History, tradition, and legacy.
Focusing on the Felsenthal region. Thousands of years of history there.
5,000 years of human presence, it says. Talks about the mound-building society's archaic, woodland Mississippian periods.
And the Caddo specifically, masters of the rivers, sophisticated farmers, artists.
Right. Their leadership structures, their spiritual connection to the land, the sacred fires. We'll get back to those.
And it acknowledges the devastating impact of European contact and their displacement, but also their survival. The Caddo Nation exists today.
Crucial context. It mentions Felsenthal National Wildlife Refuge as preserving some of that heritage,
That connection to the deep past is right there in the landscape.
which leads nicely into stories 15 and 25. A brand new series you actually written, Brad, from ACN.
Ah, yes. The Turkey series.
Turkeys, Timber, and Time, a special Ashley County series. Story 15 lays out the planned 10 parts, looking at how wild turkeys and Ashley County history are intertwined.
Trying to connect the natural history with the human story, from pre-settlement all the way to modern hunting traditions.
And part 1, Story 25, Turkeys in the Tapestry of Ashley County, just kick it off. Talks about turkeys for survival for early settlers, their cultural meaning for Native Americans.
And how turkey hunting became this embedded tradition. Hopefully it's an interesting lens to look through, drawing on the Switzer collection for a lot of that context.
Looks great. Okay, quick shift to a modern debate. Story 16, Tipping, Tight Money, and the Great Pushback.
Oh boy. Yeah, this is definitely a current conversation.
It discusses how tipping prompts are showing up everywhere now, not just restaurants, right when money's tight for a lot of people.
And the feeling that it's shifting from a thank you to an obligation.
Exactly.
Mm.
Leading to some pushback, people tipping less or, skipping it altogether,
Yeah.
makes you think.
It's a tricky one. Wages, expectations, economic pressure,
Yeah,
all tangled up.
for sure. Okay, back to the settlers. Story 17. Stick and Mud, Building a Home from the Earth.
Basic survival architecture, using what was right there.
Describes building those simple cabins, weaving sticks, packing mud. Resourcefulness personified.
And how those simple homes really told a story about the people who built them.
It even mentions the stick and mud chimneys.
Yeah.
And loops back to Riff Shelton having some story involving one.
Huh. Everything's connected. It grounds you in the physical reality of their lives.
It really does. Okay, story 18 circles back to the Caddo and dives deeper. Secret fires and the Caddo people.
Right, you mentioned the fires earlier, their spiritual significance.
Huge significance. The fire was central, often on the temple mounds, tended by the Shinizi, their high priest or leader.
Representing the connection to the cosmos, the center of their world.
Yeah, maintaining it was a vital ritual. Council meetings, ceremonies, all happened around it. And thinking about Felsenthal, the archaeology suggests those ceremonial plazas likely held these sacred fires.
It gives you a glimpse into a profoundly different worldview, deeply tied to that specific place.
Okay, now for a darker piece of local history. Story 19 for the Bayou Bartholomew series again. Murder in Shangi, the 1904 Selma tragedy.
Shangi, that was the old name for Selma.
Apparently so. This is about the unsolved murders of William Billy Stevenson, his wife Jenny, and another woman, Ella Barrett, back in 1904.
Unsolved. Wow.
Yeah. Gruesome crime shook the small community to its core. Fear, rumors, but no arrests, no trial.
Those kinds of events cast a long shadow, becomes part of the local lore, a mystery that never quite goes away. Chilling.
It is. A reminder history has dark corners. Story 20 brings us back to O.K. Switzer Sr., focusing on his legal career.
Yeah.
In the courts and on the record.
So beyond politics, his work as a lawyer.
Right. Highlights his reputation for plain speaking, Ethics. Mentions a big pharmaceutical lawsuit he worked on, M8R29,
Okay.
and his time as deputy prosecuting attorney taking a stand against unethical stuff related to liquor charges.
Consistent with his character, sounds like.
Seems so. Also mentions him defending an elderly black man accused of murder, emphasizing fairness. He saw the courtroom as needing integrity.
It rounds out the picture of him as a public servant, committed to law and fairness in different roles.
Okay, almost there. Story 21 tackles post-WWII industrial development in Arkansas. Low wages, no taxes. Industry in Arkansas and the legacy of resistance.
Right, the push to bring factories to the state, AEDC efforts under Faubus, then Rockefeller.
Yeah, but it wasn't simple. They offered low wages, big tax breaks to lure companies.
But sometimes faced resistance from the established rural elite, right? Who didn't want their cheap labor pool disrupted.
Exactly. The industrial paradox, the story calls it. Wanting industry, but maybe on terms that didn't benefit everyone long term. Discusses the lasting impact.
Complex history. Shows how economic development goals can clash with existing power structures. Another piece from Arkansas, a narrative history.
Okay, finally. Stories 23 and 24 are teasers. Something special is coming.
Ooh, intriguing.
It says starting Sunday, April 27th, 7 p.m., they'll release a piece of a story nightly related to Felsenthal
Whispers.
Swamp.
Sounds mysterious. Swamp whispers? Could be folklore, ghost stories, natural mysteries.
Who knows? Definitely designed to pique curiosity, keep people tuning in to ACN.
Good hook.
Phew. Okay, that was 25 stories. A real deep dive, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We covered a lot of ground jobs, settlers, politics, industry, deep history, current issues.
Huge thanks again to ESA Staffing for their support, and to the Ovid T. Switzer Jr. Collection for preserving all this, and of course to Ashley County Now for sharing it.
It really gives you a layered sense of Ashley County. It's not just one thing, is it?
Not at all.
Mm.
Hopefully you listening got a feel for that richness, that variety. Maybe something sparked your interest.
Yeah, maybe you want to follow that Creamer Lumber series, or look up Charles Mann's books, or definitely catch those Whispers from the Swamp.
Go check out the ACN Facebook page for the full stories.
When you put it all together, Creamer's ambition, the Caddo's sacred fires, Reverend Shelton's preaching, the shift to poultry, the internet upgrade, you see how all these threads make up the unique fabric of the place.
So here's a thought to leave you with. What one thread we talked about today really stuck with you? What surprised you or made you want to know more?
Mull that over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.